Hi everyone, this is Mel Gabby, and if you're fairly new to me and my work, this is a video about what I learned on my recent adventure to Wales in my camper van and some of the discoveries that I made that I wanted to share with you. If you're not new to my work and you've seen a bit of what I do, welcome back. So, what I learned on the road and why it's better than scrolling, not as necessarily watching my videos is better than scrolling, but what I actually learned. And I'm going to share these from a psychology, travel, anthropological, political, all sorts of different perspectives. And I am going to I've got some separate videos that I'm in the process of creating. One that's aimed at people who are thinking about getting a van or already got a camper van, some of the top tips, and it applies to those who are trying to live in small spaces like this. And also a new program I'm working on that links with my next trip that I'll be sharing more about over the coming weeks. So, hi, if you're new to me, welcome. And for those that have seen some of my work, like I said, welcome back. So, just to give you a bit of background, I've worked in psychology, psychotherapy for over 25 years in different systems and services as a coach. And there's a lot more about me on my website and other videos that I've done. But basically, I'm also a seeker of both adventures and deeper aspects and narratives of life. So if you've been following my campervan and travel adventures, then you'll know I've just come back from a trip to Wales. And you also know that I've been posting all the different trips that I've done since I bought my van in 2024. And it wasn't the first time I went traveling, but it was the first time I'd gone traveling in a camper van. In fact, it was the first camper van I'd ever bought. So this has been a sort of 18-month journey of, and in particular, 3-year journey of experimenting with new ideas, using skills that I've done before in different ways, and reconnecting with my love of travel and what I like learning about people and places and what brings me joy. Because basically, everything I do is about what lights us up and how can I help inspire people to do some of the things that lights you up and also brings you joy. So, being on the road isn't just about new places, new spaces, meeting new people, but it's also about what happens inside when you step out of your everyday life. It's also about how travel rewires the brain, soothes your nervous system, and opens you up to parts of yourself that sometimes you don't even know were waiting there to be seen. So first of all is there's a dopamine difference. Lots of us know about dopamine now and that it's activated all the time when we do scrolling, or as some people call it, doom scrolling. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. And when you check how much time you've spent on any of those platforms and realized not just the time, but what you've actually been watching, it's really important to really even just get a sense of that. Because what we know in psychology and brain neuroscience is that where we put our attention lights up different parts of the brain. So I wanted to open up with dopamine. There's a difference if you're in search of dopamine and feel good chemicals. Most of us get those little dopamine hits all day. And part of why people get depressed is this idea that we're missing some of those chemicals, but we can oversaturate our brain in certain things. So that dopamine is got from scrolling social media, checking messages, and like I said, clicking your next video. And that's like fast food dopamine, quick, addictive, and leaves you hungry for more. Also, if you scroll a lot at night, it can disrupt your sleep and interfere with some of the processes that take place naturally as part of helping reset the human body and heal what needs healing and process what needs processing. But travel gives us dopamine too, and it's a slow cooked version, really. When you arrive somewhere, your brain not only releases dopamine, but also serotonin, endorphins, and if you connect with people, oxytocin. Oxytocin is familiar in research on relationships, so that when people start to date, you meet someone new online, and I've talked about that in another video. You start chatting, dopamine's released, you get excited, you like being in contact, and then you start to build up some serotonin and endorphins. And over time, online, you can build up oxytocin, and that's why it's actually good to meet people quick when you're online, because you don't want to build up oxytocin with the wrong person, because it can make it more difficult to just say, actually, you're not the right person for me, and walk away. So this cocktail creates something far deeper and more nourishing. it's the novelty that settles into your bones, not just your feed. So dopamine hits on scrolling Facebook and that can often, like other things, leave us feeling empty. It doesn't really hit us in the right way, whereas other things can, especially when we consistently activate it in ways that do make us feel good. Then we're building up mental muscle, we're building up momentum, and then starting to close down some of the neuro circuits that are not useful to us anymore because they're built for a particular use at a particular time. So the trip of what Wales taught me was, I also learned this in the hills and the coastline of Wales, is one day I hiked a steep winding paths, my calves were burning, my lungs were pulling in sharp fresh air. And that's when you get to realize how fit you are. So even though I've been practicing yoga for a long time, I've got some strength and good flexibility, and started swimming again last October and going to the gym, so I'm stronger. But there's nothing like starting to try and walk up a hill, let alone a mountain, to realize how fast your heart starts pumping, what that feels like. But you also get that hit that by the time you reach the top and you view the open, rolling green hills and endless sky, there's something shifted, and that you can just feel good at having met a something that you found was daunting, and then you achieve it, and you get the dopamine hit, you get the feel good feeling for having met a goal that you might have had that day, to get up that hill, go for that walk around the bay. And anyone who goes walking on different beaches knows that to the mind it looks like it's a short walk, and then you start doing it and realize an hour later you're still walking across the beach. I went to a campsite that advertised as being a few steps from the beach. Well, it was more than a few steps, and they didn't say that the road down to the beach was actually like this. And so when I looked at that, it reminded me of when I actually worked in Wales quite a couple of decades ago, that going down took about an hour, 20 minutes, and coming up took an hour and a half. And so I actually drove down in the van, and I decided to go for shorter trips up and down hillsides. So I did quite a bit of walking, but the hill walking was a bit more intense. So I also had really good night's sleep, especially on the days where it wasn't so intense, the sunshine, because today I think it's 25 degrees again, and that's quite intense to be in the sun all day. So the van, I've got to find somewhere that's more shaded. So my body wasn't just tired, it was satisfied. And what we know in mental health from sleep hygiene is what you do before you go to bed makes a big difference. So if you're reflecting on the day of how lovely the different scenes were and what the sea was like, and you had a really nice ice cream and played in the sand or went in the water or did some paddle boarding or surfing, and you're reflecting on the day, it's a totally different game changer than if you're reflecting on the day and you're at work or you've been working at home and you're struggling with different facets. It's two totally different worlds. And the more you immerse yourself in that process of reflecting on the day of all the good things that went on, and you're out in the environment, it's a multi-sensory experience. And it's the multi-sensory experiences that create those sort of deeper memories in your bones, in your cells. I also, as you know, practice yoga a long time. And my first time of doing yoga on the beach was actually when I was doing yoga teacher training. And we have these ideals of, oh, yoga on the beach will be just so amazing. But actually, we got up, I think it was before sunrise. So I wasn't doing that well of getting up on purpose. Sometimes I just wake up at that time and it's fine. On this particular day, it wasn't. And we walked down to the beach, and the sand was still cold and the sun was starting to come on. And on a photo, it would have looked absolutely lovely. But there was just something about, I couldn't get the poses, the sand keeps shifting. I got sand in all my hands, and was trying to not get sand everywhere because we were going somewhere afterwards. So that actually was not a pleasant experience. So I was talking to somebody that I met while I was on the trip, and they said, oh, let's do some yoga on the beach. And I said, let's do yoga on the walkway near the beach. So it's a completely flat surface. I don't always have the mats with me, but I've got a beautiful blanket that can stretch out. And I've got some yoga that I can do that doesn't require, when you do sun salutation, you stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. So I do it. I do a different style of yoga. Anyway, it was really nice to get up, but I don't start doing it on the beach because I've been on the road and sleeping in the van on a rock and roll bed, they're called, the pull-out beds. Um, Even though it's pretty comfortable, you can wake up, especially as I've been doing the hill walking, quite stiff and sore. So I was doing some stretching in the van just to get my body moving, and then using the side of the van to do things like when you hang over and aim to touch your toes, when you do like a warrior pose, but instead of putting your hands up, I hold the side of the van. It's hard to describe. It'd be better to do a video on it, but it's about adapting the yoga for the fact that I'm on a trip, and I avoid not doing it because doing so much driving just means that my back and shoulders get quite tight. And then with the hill walking, you're activating different muscles that don't normally get activated if you sat at your desk all day at home. So it's really important to move and stretch. So the lady that I met, she does Pilates, and we were talking about what kind of exercise you can do while you're on the road, because quite a few of us were on the road for a while. So the good thing about doing that is when you're doing it on the beach, you've got the sound waves, in the background. The waves are coming in and out. It's so easy to tune in to that sound and practice mindfulness, which is about tuning into the moment and noticing what you hear around you, whether it's birds singing, the waves coming in. And that was such a beautiful sound that was a constant while I was on the trip because I spent a lot of time by the coast. So it wasn't about poses anymore. It was about being in the body, about being in my body, about noticing what I was experiencing. And also, I absolutely love the sea, but the British seaside, it isn't necessary. You've got to be a bit hardy and resilient to want to go out and do some wild swimming. But it's very attractive, and it got so hot that I ended up getting into the water. And there's nothing more exhilarating than feeling that shock of the wave, because the waves were quite strong, hitting the back of you, spreading cold water, all over your body that's hot, and gasping and just experience that exhilaration. And I think the van life, as well as travel, can sometimes really connect us with that very old survival sort of shamanic part of us. And it's something that just helps you feel more alive. So we're now getting off the phone and off the sofa, but now we're actually starting to experience the elements. And it's the elements, it's the nature that connects us with that deeper part of ourselves. So there was a few times where my breath was like, and my friend was trying to use her paddleboard on the sea. She was being tossed about everywhere, and she didn't even go that far out. So it was exhilaration and adrenaline at the same time. And for people who are what we might in the past said were adrenaline junkies, speedboat racing, jumping out of planes, going across high bridges, that wasn't really the way that, I'd experienced life for a long time. So when you start having those experiences, you notice how much it has an effect on your mindset and your body, because you've got to really concentrate when you're driving, when you're going to new places, when you're trying to park. Your focus is constantly on what it is you're trying to do. So all the other stuff that you normally have around your head that takes about 2 weeks to dissipate when you go on a normal holiday in between working, can quite quickly dissipate if you get out and hike and walk through the forest and get with a group of people and do new stuff, new stuff, new stuff. Whether that is just going on a hike for the first time, or going around to see new sites, new ruins, churches, whatever it is that is attracting you, or just seeing what unfolds while you're on that trip. So the other aspect of this is I always want to flag up, because of the work that I do with people, and I create these change programs, 30 days to change your life, change, grow, and transform. What that also means is often we can stop ourselves from growing, from evolving, and from shifting. Or circumstances, external circumstances can. You've got a job, you need to give them 2 months, 3 months notice, you've got small children, so you're limited, they're in school. So there are different limitations that are actually reality. But where we can,
and we start to explore what have we got control of and what can we do, then we might think, oh, I want to join a meetup group, I want to do a course, or I want to do that program that Mel's created. Oh, it's great. I know some of the science behind 30 days and I know it can make a difference. But what can happen is your ego can start to whisper. And so this is where the psychology comes in of it's not just about going on a trip and setting intentions for having a good time, a rest, being with nature. This can also be big parts of an overall change cycle of upgrading your life or really giving you time out of your normal environment so that new, fresh inspiration and ideas can come about maybe what the next leg of your journey is. And this is partly what I'm starting to record about the different chapters I've had in my life. And so, whenever we consider doing something new, like I said, a new course, uh, meeting new friends, going to a new part of town, we can start to feel that fear. And our brain interprets that fear and gives us lots of messages, internal messages that say, no, don't go there. Why don't you stay at home? You can do it tomorrow. Or you didn't enjoy it last time. You can even remember things that aren't quite accurate. And lots of people don't realize it's actually the brain's job is to keep you safe. We're meant to evolve as humans and carry on living. And that lion and dinosaurs not meant to eat us. We're meant to be able to get to safe ground. So the job of the brain is to scan the environment without us even being aware and look at the micro detail and actually where to put the alert systems on in the body. But because of modern, the way that we live in modern times is that alert system is often activated when we get the email ping, when we get a message where our partners are upset with us or the kids need something and we're being disrupted. So those pings are happening. But when we think about the bigger things, we can usually cope with what's going on day to day because it's our normal environment. So we know where the food is, we know where to go shopping, we know how much petrol we've got in the car. But when you push yourself outside your comfort zone, you're coming. So your comfort zone's here, and you're in it, and your family, and your kids, and the school, and work, and all that's within your comfort zone. But when we come out of that comfort zone, we go on a little trip, we go and explore, we join a social group. What happens is the brain starts to um, interpret some of that as data that's to be scary of. So we have to be really aware of that. And it doesn't mean to say you're going to be aware of that and need to. But most people who go on holiday, even if you book the best hotel, get the best price, the best flight, and it all goes well, there's always things that happen that we couldn't have planned or prepared for. And so it's how do you cope when you start getting stressed? And it's not just about getting stressed, but how quickly do you recover and not let it ruin your day and not let it build and build and build into something much bigger. So the brain will scan the environment, take in the information, maybe set off the alert system in the body, release some adrenaline. So you might start to think, oh, I feel anxious, I feel that adrenaline. And I've misinterpreted that quite a few times, especially when I was doing it. It was a big event for me. But I did a talk a couple of years ago at Birmingham NEC. It was the first time I was really going into my story about, what I'd learned along the way and where I thought I'd made progress and then got hampered and how that impacted me. And in the lead up to that, I'd booked it and arranged, everything that I was going to do. And I started having real anxiety and panic about it. So I spoke to a coach that I've got, and he was like, "No, it's not anxiety, it's not fear, it's excitement." I said, "It's not. It doesn't feel like excitement." So I had to go mentally, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I'm boring, I forget my words, I fall off the stage. It's only a little stage. Um, so I have to do that sort of self-talk, and that's what we have to learn. And actually, it was a really good experience. I was really glad I did it, and I got a lot out of doing that. So that was a real growth spurt. But in terms of my safety and security here, it felt like I was moving out here. So sometimes what we have to do is steps along the way to the bigger stuff. Sometimes some people can just go right out here and force themselves to do a TED talk, to talk on stage, to write a book, to run a workshop. But sometimes a lot of people that I've met need this incremental approach. So just be aware of that. It's not wrong or right. It's just how the body works. So there is a theory of safety versus risk. And I learned it about when I was training in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which is about how the mind, how our programs inform our life and how we can reprogram that. And so the safety versus risk is about how even in education growing up, the more we get atomized for kind of the risks that we take, the harder it is to take those risks because, we've we have these experiences that were negative. And so the ego is trying to protect us from more negative experiences, when actually, if we get through some of those negative experiences, we can really discover a lot about ourselves. And so we step out and we do a weekend workshop, we meet some people, we make some connections, we try stand-up paddleboarding that I did for the first time last year. Really anxious because I've got some proprioception issues, which is how you manage your sense of self in time and space. But I know about that now. So again, I have to do this self-talk so I can get over that barrier of my brain going into scramble mode. And that's like an after effect that a lot of people experience when they've had PTSD, a car accident, something that's caused a sort of big sort of slam in the body. So you do something new, and then you feel happy and joy and connection, and all those serotonin, dopamines, and everything are being released in the body. And then it propels you to, oh, that went well. I think I'll do this. So we can expand that sense of safety versus risk. So it's called the stretch zone. We don't stop growing and we don't do too much risk because we'll feel overwhelmed. And people who experience some mental health issues, depression, anxiety, can go into overwhelm, then they lock down, they go inside, they go under the covers and they stay there for weeks because it's just too much. And sometimes that's like a trauma response. It's too much. We have to go into healing. So I've got other videos where I explore that. So we come out and we stretch. So we stretch ourselves beyond what we could do before. So last year I did my first stand-up paddle boarding, and this year I did it again. And I was a lot more confident and I was stronger as well because I'd been going to the gym. And so now the benefit of going to the gym was far more than what I anticipated. That I'll share with you is I tried I never camped when I was a kid. We went for day trips and we stayed in places, but I'd never done camping. But my mum loved nature, so I was out in nature a lot. So when I got the camper van, it was I'd never put up an awning, never put up a tent, anything like that. I'd stayed in hotels, travelled around that way, had my car. So I had an awning with a van that I took on the last festival, but I don't take it on the trip. It's just incredibly hard to get up as one person. And me and my friend were putting it up for the festival. Even we were struggling because we don't put it up that much, and you forget kind of the method you're meant to use that's better than just scrambling through it. So this time I looked at the maps, Google Maps, and had to look at where all the campsites were and trying to gauge how long do I think I'll stay in that place. Because when you've had burnout, you can't just go, you just end up with massive fatigue again, so you've got to pace. So you need to figure out kind of what can you do. You push yourself, you do more walking, but you want to know that you can recover from that without ending up needing a holiday after the holiday. So I looked at where the campsites were. So one of the campsites are booked sort of halfway in the trip. The review online was great, and it was actually in the locality that I wanted to go and visit, which is St David's Cathedral in Wales, in Pembrokeshire. And so it wasn't far from there, and I had to look at where it was in location to the beach, the sea, St David's, and some of the other spiritual sites that I was visiting. And it was basic, and it said it was basic, and basic sometimes just means toilet. But this basic was a toilet, but it had a shower block, but they were all cold showers. Now, on a hot day like this, cold shower is manageable because you can leave your bucket water outside, but it'll warm up in the sun. Anyway, so I booked this campsite, and it was a hill that went up like that. So I wasn't going to go to the top of the hill because what happens if you're not on a flat surface? You start rolling to the side or you slipping down out of the bed. It's a very weird experience. And I've done it a few times where it's a bit like that, but not like that. So I parked and I've got a portable shower that I can heat up some water, put in a bucket, and I can use the shower cubicles to get a shower. So that was fine. It had the basics, and I had enough in my fridge. And also I bought a battery pack, so I don't need any electrics for 3 or 4 days at a time. And that was great. That was all manageable. I was now expanding my experience of going out of campsites that were more comfortable, had more facilities. I did the electric hookup so that I powered my fridge and my batteries and my laptops because I'm filming and I'm working online. But this time it was a lot more remote, and nobody was there. There was it was on the back of a farm, so the farm owner lived a couple of fields away. And so apart from just seeing her drive round twice while I was there, I stayed there for a few days. That was it. So there's a few vans there, all apart from each other. And it was when the night time came, all of a sudden I became aware I was in the middle of nowhere. And the trees were swaying, the wind and the howling got up. It was quite windy. And I was like, oh, and then you start to think about, I wonder if this land is known for anything. Your brain starts to go into overdrive. So I'm having to talk to myself, Mel, stop it. Anyway, I had a good sleep, and it was great waking up in the morning when the sun was coming up. There was fields and mountains everywhere in Pembrokeshire, that I could see because we were high up, so I could see quite far, and got over the anxiety. So I kind of knew the next night. I moved where the van was. I parked a bit closer to another van. So lots of people on the van site was like, why does everyone always come and park next to me? It's because sometimes we just feel a bit safer. We try, we do things in packs. We're group people often, even if we spend a lot of time on our own. So that's about safety versus risk. And the third example I'll give you is when I did my sort of second or third trip and I went to Devon. And if you're not from the UK, I'll try and describe it. But on the way to Devon, there's a motorway, the M5 freeway, I think you call it in other places. And it slowly sort of gets higher and higher and higher before you go down into the areas. So I was going to Torquay at the time in Devon. It's beautiful. And I noticed that the van was slowly, unless you get a good run in, like rev up your engine as you're going down, then coming back up is a challenge. So I was going up it, and my mileometer was like dropping to 30 miles an hour, and I was like, oh my god, it's going to go down to like 5 miles an hour. I'm not going to be able to get the van up, So that was the anxiety of driving. So I'd never drove a van before. I didn't know what its power really was, and it wasn't like my car that is very zippy and will get over any place really. So there was anxiety in that, and so this trip, I knew I wanted to visit these coastal places, but I didn't know it had beaches like Devon, where the beach, you have to go right down to the beach, literally off the hill or mountain. So I found this place. I thought, oh, I'll go and explore that on the map. Forgot to look at the gradients of how steep is it. And I start driving, and my brain registers it's going down like this. And I wasn't just anxious now; I was starting to panic, and I was like, oh my god, so I was going down. Anyway, I got to the bay, and it was beautiful. I was met by this beautiful turquoise sea, the ice cream vans, families laughing, and parking spaces right on the bay. And I was like, wow, this is great. It was really hot. Spent some time there, but the back of my mind, I was like, I've got to get back up there again. So I was really stressed. What's the worst that can happen? The van doesn't get up. Okay, there's lots of farmers around there with massive combine harvesters or tractors or trucks. So I'll be fine. So again, that the fear and the anxiety creeps in. But after, when I've done that a few times, my confidence driving up and down those places, not that I would maybe intentionally choose it now, but I might do, because I'm going to have a trip in September that may well have these steep places. But now I know what to look for a bit more than just location on Google Maps and campsites. So then my body gets released with all these chemicals of wow, oh my goodness. And I found a campsite near there and went there, and it was halfway up. So I thought, okay, I got halfway up. So when I come out of there and I'd had a good sleep and I wasn't overtired, because when we get overtired, sometimes these fears release quicker. So they're the things about, some of the things I learned. I learned a lot more that's related to the campervan and van travel, which I'm going to share in a different video. But it was about that really nice blend of, a lot of people say, oh, you travel on your own and it's solo. And I'm like, yeah, I do like traveling with people sometimes, and I've had some amazing trips with somebody in the passenger seat. But the fact of the solo one, I didn't plan to stay anywhere. I just knew the areas I wanted to go. And some of the areas that I wanted to go, I thought were going to be, I'd experience them, I'd enjoy them a lot more, and I didn't. So I didn't stay there. I moved on somewhere else. And the places I hadn't intended to go, that I thought, oh, I'll just go and check that out, was really special. And I spent a lot more time in St. David's than I anticipated, and a lot more time around Fishguard. So I've got a separate video that's going to be released. I haven't quite named it yet, but it's about spaces and places, that I will put the link on the bottom of all these videos that I'm putting on YouTube. Because though we don't want the travel memories to fade just into nice photos, we want them to become resources that you can draw on later. And this is something else that I teach clients, but that we can do. So we need to be anchoring the magical moments, the memories. So if you want to do this now or write down this part, you can do it later when you've got some space and no disruptions, is you write down what magical moments you can remember. A walk on the beach, an ice cream you had, laughing with the kids, anything at all. Then take a slow, deep breath. Put your hand on your heart and really immerse yourself back in that memory, that feeling. Really feel it. Really feel what it's like to be driving there, to be sitting on the beach, to be hearing the waves. Really connect with that. And then later, use that same gesture to keep re-anchoring the same feeling. And then we do what's called milking the good times. So replay the memories in full detail, and we can stack them. So I can remember when I went to Saundersfoot, down that hill, had that exhilaration, that panic, and then got on the beach, spent loads of time on the beach, saw the kids playing, beautiful moments, got an ice cream. So now I stack these memories. So you need to put some time aside, but you can even do it in bite-sized moments in your day, so that first thing in the morning you get into a mindful state, you sit back and just take a breath in. Feel your body on the chair, on the bed, on the sofa, in the garden. Tune into the sounds, tune into the senses, what you can smell, what you can hear, what you can feel, what's going on for you. Go back into the memory, take some deep breaths, and then think of the color of the sky, the texture of the sand, the taste of salt in the air, the taste of salt when you get bashed by a wave like I did, and all of a sudden it's just salt. And the more vividly you can recall it, then the stronger the emotional imprint will be. So we want to make positive, strong emotional imprints as resources and tools that you can reconnect with. So that even if challenging times happen or you go through a phase, you can reconnect with this. The more you practice this, I do this most days. And now what you're doing is building up new neural pathways, making connections between those different memories, lighting up those different parts of the brain. Then use the breath work to lock it into your body. Okay, so you just breathe in at least 3 times. And then breathe in. So do that 3 to 5 times whenever you want to feel calm, confident, and inspired. So something else happened before I end this video that inspired me for the next trip. In the middle of these moments, the beaches, the hills, the quiet drives, I started thinking about where I come from. And I've thought about it a lot over the years. And in particular, I did a really deep dive at the end of, I'd done my counselling diploma and qualified in 99, and then I did a master's. And I was motivated by the master's because I was looking at my own personal experience of marrying someone from a different culture, having children who were perceived as mixed race, multi-heritage, and what that meant for me and what that brought up for me. And I also then started thinking about the politics, categorizations, identity, what we connect with, all of that. And again, I'll talk about that in a different video. But I started thinking about where I come from, my heritage, and the landscape that ancestors walked. So while I was in Wales, and that's what's formed this sort of deeper changing spaces videos, is what it feels like when you go into these different places and what reminds you and what you learn about yourself as a person, as a human, and where you're at in life, but also who you're connected to, where your parents come from, the messages you receive about who you are, your culture, your race, your nationality, your gender, all of these messages we receive when we're growing up. and they're imbued by all these other these policies and ideas of the time, at the time when we were born, as well as family dynamics and how we get on with everyone. So that's and I'm exploring my dad's side, but my mom's side is the Scottish side, and my uncle, and our heritage from the Isle of Bute, and also my grandparents' side. So I'm taking a much deeper dive. So if you're interested in ancestry and heritage and what makes us who we are, then be open to listening to that. Because travel isn't just about where you go, it's about the questions it awakens, the stories it brings up, and the next step it inspires. So if you're feeling stuck, uninspired, or like you're living a fast food dopamine from scrolling, I'd invite you to take a trip. It doesn't have to be far, it just has to be different. It can be down the road to a garden centre you've not been to before, or a beautiful landscape you've always wanted to explore. Don't hold off, don't wait. And ask yourself, what could you learn about yourself there? What might that lead to, not just on the map, but for your own personal growth? And if you want to explore this in more depth with me, I've got workshops, one-to-one sessions, and a deep dive into the tools and psychology that turn travel into transformation, but not just travel, your personal journey. We can turn that from where you're at now into transformation. If you want to access my free material on YouTube, I'm sweating in it, it's so hot. I've got a 30-day program, level 1, level 2. You can access those. If you do that for 30 days, that already starts to work on the brain, the neural pathways, and starts to open you up to considering things in a different way. And when you do that and you open up, it also means you open up to opportunities you haven't considered yet, ideas, inspiration, and people. And part of the trip was I connected with a couple of people, one who's really into the history of Pembrokeshire and Wales and was able to go deep on the things I was looking at, who I will be interviewing for my sort of Mel, Gabby and Friends podcast. And the other lady is an artist and took her easel and her paints and her two beautiful dogs. I was parked by the beach, and we just chatted about all these different components. And there was a connection there I wasn't expecting to make. You don't know who you're going to meet, you don't know who you're going to talk to, and you don't know whether or not it's going to be a moment in time, an hour, a day, or more. So just because sometimes it's the path really that changes you most, and it isn't the one that's planned, and sometimes they're the most beautiful ones. And we just need to be aware that our brain can get in the way that says who, what, why, and where, and we try and figure out every aspect of our journey. And so if you've got something coming up where you feel anxious and daunted about, and you're struggling to cope with that on your own, I've got Kickstarter sessions and I've got reset sessions. They're either 3 hour, one session, or 3 separate hour sessions. And all the links will be below. So that's it. Goodbye from me, and leave a comment below about what trips have meant for you, what you discovered about yourself on trips, adventures, campervan adventures, camping adventures, anything about your own personal ancestry you'd like to explore more, or whether or not I've helped evoke some thoughts from this. It'd be great to hear from you. Either email me in the link below or put a message on here, because I know that some of this is private and I'm putting myself out there by sharing, even some of the things that I've got some, vulnerabilities about sharing and about all those different aspects I've covered over the years. So thank you for listening, and goodbye for now. And I look forward to seeing you at the next video.